7 bone-chilling fates you won't believe exist. Shocking truth revealed at midnight. In a dimly lit town where secrets lurked in the shadows, something sinister was brewing. It was a place where even the bravest dared not tread after dark. Rising mist clung to the old cracked pavement, whispering stories of those who vanished without a trace. Each corner held a ghostly echo of laughter that had long turned to screams. Imagine waking up to find that your childhood friends had vanished overnight, their laughter now a haunting memory. The chilling sensation of dread settled heavy in the air, creeping into the hearts of the townsfolk. Was it just the winds, or was something lurking, watching, waiting? Local legends rattled with each crack of thunder. Some believed the clock tower in the center of town was cursed. It had stopped dead at midnight, the exact time when strange events occurred. The townspeople often heard stories of the 8th floor of the old abandoned asylum, a place where the walls whispered the names of the lost. Rumor had it that those who entered never came back out the same. There was the tale of the dancer whose spirit roamed the town each Halloween, seeking vengeance for her abandoned dreams. Bad things happened at midnight, they said, things that slithered in darkness, hungry for souls. A chill ran down your spine when you heard the tale of Jamie, who followed a black cat one fateful night. Her friends said she vanished into thin air, and only the faint sound of her laughter remained, echoing through the streets. And then there was the mysterious letter that appeared in mailboxes, promising answers if only you dared to meet at the graveyard at midnight. What secrets did it promise? Nobody dared to find out. The air grew heavy with anticipation, and the line between the living and the spirits blurred. Would you be able to uncover the truth, or would you join the lost? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the clock struck midnight, the town held its breath. The once familiar streets morphed into a maze of shadows. Folks whispered of an unseen force asserting its will, a darkness clutching at their hearts. In the stillness, a scream shattered the silence, a call for help that seemed to echo from the graveyard itself. Was it just a figment of their imagination, or had the time finally come for the truth to be unearthed? The air hummed with electric tension, filled with the irresistible urge to confront the looming mysteries waiting just ahead, beckoning them into the night. What would they find as they walked deeper into the darkness? The moment the scream echoed, the townsfolk scrambled toward it, their hearts pounding in unison. Shadows danced on the walls, flickering like frantic flames, as fear nudged them onward. A group of 5 gathered nervously by the wrought iron gates of the graveyard, their breath visible in the cold night air, mingling with the mist. Each of them had heard the legends, the stories that haunted their town and bubbled to the surface in hushed whispers. Did you hear that? It sounded like Jamie. Caleb stammered, gripping the fence tightly as if it could anchor him from plunging into the abyss. The others exchanged anxious glances, their faces pale. Alyssa, who had often been the voice of reason, spoke up reluctantly, "We have to go. If it is her, we can't just leave her there." Her voice trembled, but resolve seeped through her fear. They stepped forward together, a ragtag group bound by friendship and terror. The air thickened as they crossed the threshold into the graveyard, the tombstones looming like ancient sentinels. Each step sent a fresh wave of unease washing over them. Whispers floated through the air, filling their heads with half-formed thoughts. Was it the wind, or something more? Over there, Jaden cried, pointing to a flickering light near an old mausoleum covered in vines and darkness. The light beckoned them, pulsing gently like a heartbeat in the depths of despair. They approached cautiously, their footsteps muffled by the overgrown grass. As they neared the source, the luminescence revealed a small, ornate lantern sitting on an altar of stone, a direct invitation to anyone brave enough to seek. The air turned electric, a sense of something profound hovered just out of reach. Caleb's heart raced. "This can't be good," he muttered, but curiosity pushed them closer, ignoring the dread that wrapped around them like chains. Suddenly, the lantern flickered violently, illuminating a shadow that darted behind the mausoleum. A scuffle of leaves drew their attention, and with wide eyes, they instinctively pointed toward it. "What was that?" Alyssa whispered, her breath hitching. "It has to be," Jaden began, but the words slipped away as they turned an ear toward the sound. The silence broke again, the once hollow graveyard seemed charged with energy. They could hear a low, desperate chant that seemed to rise from the very ground beneath them, echoing names long forgotten. Each name they knew, each name was another reminder of those who had disappeared. "Do you feel that?" Caleb asked, almost breathlessly, as a chill ran through him, cutting deeper than the night air. It felt as if the earth itself heaved beneath their feet, shivering with resentment and pain. "Guys, this is wrong!" Alyssa shouted suddenly, her eyes wide with an understanding that frightened her to her core. She turned to leave, but it was already too late. The lantern brightened dramatically, blinding them. An unseen force gripped them, pulling them toward the altar. As visions flashed through their minds scenes of Jamie, the dancer screams, fear surged anew. In that moment, a voice broke through the chaos, weaving dark promises. "Do you want to find what has been lost?" They froze, hearts hammering. Would they dare seek answers, or would they tread the same path as the countless souls before? What awaited them if they crossed that line? The decision bore down on them like a heavy weight. As the lantern flickered lower, shadows danced back to life, appearing to stretch like clawed fingers. Suddenly, the lantern dimmed, leaving only darkness, and the final question lingered in the air: who would make the ultimate sacrifice to uncover the truth? The night was ripe with the unseen, and the graveyard seemed to breathe, waiting for their choice. "Together?" Caleb whispered, barely audible, but what they didn't know was that making a choice might already be too late. The silence pressed down on them, heavy like a wet blanket. The darkness seemed thicker, an unyielding mass cloaking their senses. They exchanged glances, eyes darting, feeling the unease grip tighter. "Did you hear that?" Jaden's voice quivered, breaking the stillness. They hadn't moved, but each pulse of their hearts beat fiercely in the silence. And then, shooting pain pierced the air again. A piercing scream echoed somewhere deep within the graveyard, choked with terror. "Jamie!" Alyssa's voice barely emerged, a whisper swallowed by the night. They had come for her, drawn into this cursed place, yet dread twisted in their stomachs like a knife. The lantern flickered back to life, casting a pale light that illuminated the altar more vividly. Around them, shadows twisted and coiled. "Forget the lantern," Caleb urged, stepping back instinctively. "We need to get out of here." But something deep within him felt anchored to that light, as if it held secrets too grand to ignore. "We can't," Alyssa's voice cracked. "What if it is her?" "That voice, it has to be. Or it could be a trap." Jaden cut in, his eyes wide as he glanced back toward the path they had walked. "We should go." In a moment of collective silence, they heard the faintest hint of laughter, childlike, innocent yet twisted, bubbling up from the depths of the darkness. It sent shivers down their spines. Instinctively, they all turned back to the lantern, its glow pulsating as though in response to their fear. "Guys," Jaden ventured tentatively, "maybe we should just ask." "Ask what?" Alyssa shot back. "Ask it to let Jamie go?" The frustration in her words clashed violently with the rising panic among them. As if in response, the lantern's light shifted, revealing the stone inscription on the altar beneath. "The lost will show themselves, but only if the living dare." "What does that mean?" Caleb asked, his voice trembling. Beneath a veneer of certainty, doubt clawed at their resolve. The air filled with weighty secrets, tales of past mistakes echoing in their memories. The bones laid to rest beneath their feet perhaps held whispers of betrayal, vengeance, and lost love. The shadows began to twist and coalesce, ghostly forms stretching and fluttering around the ancient tombstones. It felt like many eyes were watching, waiting. One abruptly surged past them, a figure wrapped in nothingness. Caleb gasped, gripping Alyssa's wrist tighter. Her pulse raced beneath his fingers. "Why are we standing here? We need to go," Jaden urged again, glancing nervously at the approaching darkness. But then Caleb stepped forward, unable to shake the compulsion to find out. "What if it leads us to her?" Alyssa looked torn. "And what if it doesn't? What if it leads us to our end?" "Or it leads us to the truth," Caleb countered, voice rising. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath their feet, and the air blazed with an electric tension that urged them forward, pulled by the whispers of the past. Suddenly, the lantern flared fiercely. They shielded their eyes against its blinding light, and just as quickly as it ignited, its lantern died, a low whisper curling back into the shadows. In the dimness, the voices swelled into a cacophony, and the sound of their own breaths became labored, panic clenching in their chests. In that moment, realization struck like lightning. What if not finding Jamie meant becoming part of this dark legacy? With each beat of their hearts, the burden of choice pushed down harder. It was too late to turn back. But each of them grappled with the same unsettling thought: what would smashing the silence cost them? Just then, the lantern shuddered to life one last time, casting a glow that revealed a figure among the trees, a pale silhouette of a girl in a flowing white dress, a song drifting from her lips, the words fluttering like trapped butterflies. Alyssa's breath formed a cloud in the air. "Is that Jamie?" The girl turned her head slightly, piercing eyes locking onto theirs, and then she vanished into the night. "Are we really ready for whatever comes next?" Caleb whispered, fear clawing at his throat. And as the chilling laughter filled the air once more, they felt themselves being drawn deeper into the abyss of the unknown. The air was thick with fear, so palpable that it felt like a living entity, wrapping around their throats, squeezing hard. Caleb swallowed, trying to find his voice, trying to gather courage from deep within. The shadows seemed to beckon with silent whispers, curling around them like a sinister embrace. "Do we follow?" Jaden asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Sensing the hesitation, he continued, "We have to find her. If that was really Jamie, we can't just leave her." Alyssa's eyes glistened with unshed tears. Her expression was a haunting mix of hope and despair. But Caleb turned, glancing toward the path they had come from, those cursed footprints they thought were mere paths of adventure, now thick with dark implications. What if she's changed? What if she's not the same? "Maybe she needs us," Alyssa countered, a spark flashing in her eyes. The lantern flickered again, casting grotesque shadows that danced across the ancient gravestones, distorting the faces of the dead into twisted visages. Before Caleb could respond, another scream pierced the air, this one louder, longer, more desperate than before. It clawed at something primal inside him, freezing his blood. "Did you hear that? That's not Jamie," Jaden cried, taking a step back. The shadows seemed to pulse with excitement at his fear, yet Caleb felt something stir. A deep instinct urged him forward. What if she's the only one who can help us know the truth? We can't run forever. With a deep breath that felt hot in his lungs, he stepped past the altar, heart pounding relentlessly as he made his way deeper into the darkness. Alyssa hesitated, glancing back at Jaden, who was rooted in place, eyes wide with sheer terror. "We can't just stand here," she nearly begged, willing him to follow. "What if she's in danger?" Summoning his strength, Jaden finally moved, breaking from his frozen state and forcing himself to follow them, though hesitation clouded his expression. He felt as if the shadows were reaching out, pulling at him, whispering secrets of past wrongs. Then, as they advanced, the ground beneath them shifted once more, rippling as though alive. An old, gnarled tree loomed ahead, its branches twisted like skeletal fingers clawing at the sky. The air thickened, filled with a sudden, nauseating odor of decay. "What do you see?" Jaden whispered, his voice trembling as he kept glancing back, half expecting shadows to swallow him whole. Caleb took another cautious step, squinting through the dimness. And then he noticed a faint glow peeking through the tree's bark, pulsating like a heartbeat. Over there. Is that blood? Alyssa stammered, drawing back. But Caleb couldn't look away, feeling drawn toward that glow, compelled despite the danger seeping through the air. But as they approached, the laughter returned, shifting in pitch from innocent to mocking, chilling them to their core. The branches rustled, and suddenly a figure emerged. It was Jamie, but something was off. Her face was coated in shadows, eyes darkened by a pain that sent shivers straight to their bones. "Help me," she rasped, but the laugh transformed swiftly into something grotesque, a twisted echo of her voice leaking through the branches. "No!" Caleb shouted, his heart racing as everything seemed to spiral. "This isn't right." The tree's trunk shuddered, splitting open to reveal a dark void, calling to them with promises and curses intermixed. As Jamie's eyes locked onto Caleb's, there was a strange recognition, but it flickered like a flame about to go out. Then, without warning, the laughter erupted again, filling every crevice of the graveyard. It was as if the night itself was alive, mocking their every move. "Let us get out of here!" Jaden yelled, terror flooding his voice, but Caleb stood rooted in place. Was this the truth? Was this what they came for? Or was it just another trap, another cruel twist of fate stored away for them? As the wind howled and the shadows twisted their shapes, he found himself inexplicably torn between longing and instinctive dread. Should he reach out, or draw back into the night? In that moment of decision, the ground rumbled beneath their feet as the darkness swelled higher, threatening to consume them whole. The canopy of branches closed in, and the whispers echoed ever louder. As Jamie's figure flickered, merging with the shadows, Caleb knew he had to choose. And in the heart of chaos, a voice inside him screamed for truth and retribution. But what truth awaited them, and would they survive the night to tell it? The last echoes of laughter faded into the void, leaving them standing on the brink of an unspeakable fate. Caleb's heart raced as the laughter faded, replaced by a heavy silence that blanketed the graveyard. The shadows felt like a living creature, creeping closer, ready to envelop him. His breath quickened, each inhale thick with the sickening smell of decay that permeated the air. "Caleb, we have to go," Jaden urged, his voice strained as he tugged at Caleb's arm, desperation infusing every syllable. But Caleb remained motionless, gaze transfixed on Jamie's shadowed form. The pulsing glow behind the tree seemed magnetic, pulling him in. Instead of fear, he felt a raw, primal need to understand, to possess the truth that lay before him. "Help me!" Jamie's voice trailed off into a whispering chill, as if the shadows themselves were swallowing her words. Caleb felt an ache deep in his chest, a mix of longing and dread. Was this really Jamie? Or had whatever pursued her turned her into something unrecognizable? "Don't. She's not the Jamie we remember," Alyssa shouted, tears wetting her cheeks. Her voice cracked, breaking through Caleb's trance. "We can't trust this horror." Suddenly, the earth shook violently, scattering dead leaves like wisps of a long-forgotten dream. The tree groaned, its branches flailing wildly. A dark mist billowed up from the void that yawned at their feet, and tendrils of darkness reached out hungrily, snaking toward them. "Move!" Jaden shouted, finally breaking Caleb's spell. The urgency in his voice snapped Caleb back to the moment. He turned to see Alyssa's torn expression, the flicker of fear painfully clear in her eyes, but the woods weren't done with them yet. As they turned to flee, the shadows coalesced, forming into a twisted figure cloaked in darkness, eyes gleaming as bright as the moon in an otherwise starless sky. It looked like a reflection of Jamie, but warped, grotesque. "You can't escape the truth," it hissed, voice echoing with 1,000 whispers. Caleb felt a chill race up his spine. "Get away from her!" he yelled, instinctively stepping in front of Alyssa, shielding her from the consuming darkness. "No, no, no!" Alyssa cried, her hands trembling as she reached for the lantern. "We need light." It will push it back. In a frantic scramble, Jaden grabbed a nearby broken branch, clutching it like a weapon. This is insane. We're going to die here. Panic surged through him, his eyes darting around as if searching for a way out. Caleb's mind raced. He was torn between defiance and despair. Should he fight this creature, or was it futile, a trap set by the shadows? The laughter returned, a cacophony of despair echoing off gravestones, mocking his every thought. "Jamie!" he shouted, as if calling her name could sever the spell that held her hostage. "Please fight. We're here to save you." For just a moment, the twisted figure faltered, the edge of Jamie's face sharpening against the shadows. Her eyes momentarily flickered with clarity, filled with a deep sorrow that cut straight to Caleb's heart. "It's not safe, you must find the truth." Just then, the ground beneath them roared to life. The dark void at the base of the tree widened, sucking at the earth and their very souls, a vortex demanding sacrifice for answers. "Run! Now!" Jaden yelled, urgency tinging his voice. Pulled into a frantic sprint, Caleb grabbed Alyssa's hand, pulling her behind him. They turned to flee, but a sudden crash reverberated through the air, and branches snapped like brittle bones. The figure lunged toward them, shadows swirling as they twisted and grabbed, pulling them back toward the void. In that moment filled with terror, Caleb's heart broke for Jamie again, realizing that they might not find her in time. Would they fall victim to the truth, or would the darkness consume them entirely? "Caleb! Look out!" Jaden's shout pierced through the chaos, forcing him to pivot just as the ground before him gave way. Before he could react, the world plummeted into darkness, and all he could hear was the echo of Jamie's voice fading into the maelstrom. The grenade of hope he had held onto shattered. As they fell, plunging into the unknown, he grasped at the lingering thought shrouding his mind. The truth was close if they could just survive the night, but what awaited them in the heart of the shadows promised more than intended, an awakening that would change everything. It was no longer about just finding Jamie. They were caught in the crosshairs of a lurking nightmare, and the night was far from over. What would they recover from this descent, and would they still be whole? Caleb and Alyssa hit the ground hard, darkness swallowing them whole. Pain shot through Caleb's shoulder as he landed awkwardly, gasping for breath. The air was thick and suffocating, laced with an unnatural chill. He blinked rapidly, trying to dispel the shadows creeping into his vision, but there was only darkness. "Caleb! Are you okay?" Alyssa's voice was a cruel echo in the suffocating void, tinged with panic. "Yeah, I think so," he managed to croak out, even as the cold seeped into his bones. They scrambled to their feet, but there was no ground beneath them. It was like standing on the edge of an abyss, the space around them shifting and swirling like a storm of shadows. Caleb felt the pull of the darkness, an almost sentient force, tugging at his very essence. "Jaden!" Alyssa cried, her voice breaking at the loss of their friend, her eyes wide with dread. "Where is he?" "Jaden!" Caleb shouted, his voice cracking, swallowed by the shadows. "Can you hear us?" Silence enveloped them, the only sound was the thrum of Caleb's heart pounding in his ears. Fear constricted his throat. Did the shadows claim him already? Suddenly, a flicker of light materialized before them, dancing like a moth desperately seeking refuge. Without thinking, Caleb dashed toward it, dragging Alyssa along. It felt dangerously inviting, warm against the cold that surrounded them. "Wait! What if it's a trap?" Alyssa shouted, but Caleb was already entranced by the glow. With every step, the light grew more intense, illuminating grotesque shapes twisting within the darkness. Faces, both familiar and warped, flitted past, echoes of the past woven into the shadow. Jamie's laughter mixed with the wails of those lost, an eerie symphony that tugged at his soul. "Caleb, stop!" Alyssa grabbed his arm, pulling him back just as he reached the light. "We have to think." But Caleb hesitated, torn between the light's promise and the gnawing fear of what waited in the dark. He could feel Jamie's presence, could almost sense her reaching for him. I can't leave her. She needs us. With renewed determination, Caleb took another step, and the light surged. It snaked around him, coiling through the chaos. Images flooded his mind, memories of laughter, warmth, and light. It felt so right. Then, just as quickly, the scene changed. The faces contorted, the laughter twisted into painful cries. Caleb, it's not safe. Echoed Jamie's voice, deep and resonant from within the flickering light. It was as if she were both there and yet, not. You must face the truth, or it will consume you. Face the truth? He whispered, fear electrifying his skin. The shadows responded, swirling violently, forming a vortex that rattled the very air around them. The once comforting light grew dimmer, and Caleb felt the weight of despair pressing down on him. What truth was buried in this darkness? Caleb. Alyssa's urgent grip snapped him back to reality. We need to go. Whatever this is, it wants us. They stumbled through the fleeting light, searching for an exit as the shadows lunged at their heels, snapping and hissing with fury. Each step was a chaotic dance on the edge of panic. Caleb's mind raced. But just then, he noticed something, a shimmering token at his feet, caught between light and shadow. It glimmered with an unsettling beauty, emanating a pulse that felt all too familiar. Look! He shouted, bending to grasp it. This could be the key. But as soon as he lifted it, the ground shook violently beneath them, the shadows roaring as if enraged at the discovery. The token, a delicate locket, weighed heavy in his palm, and he knew it held secrets that could save or destroy them. Caleb. The truth, it's more than just Jamie. Alyssa shouted, her eyes wide with realization. Before he could respond, thunder erupted above them, a blinding flash tearing through the darkness. And suddenly, they were no longer alone. Figures emerged, shadows dripping with malice, eyes gleaming with hunger. Time is running out, one whispered, its voice a blend of Jamie's and 1,000 others, echoing around them like an impending storm. Caleb felt the locket grow warm, its potential humming through him. They had to escape, to uncover the truth hidden in its depths. But would they survive long enough to do so? Before he could answer, the shadows surged, closing in, suffocating any hope of a clear path. Caleb! Alyssa screamed, fear twisting her words. As dark forms lunged at them, he clutched the locket tightly, heart racing toward the precipice of certainty. Would they unlock the secrets that lay ahead, or would they become the next whispers of the shadows that claimed the night? And just as the darkness engulfed them, a fiery truth clawed its way to the surface. Would they be brave enough to embrace it? The shadows pressed in on Caleb and Alyssa, a living nightmare clawing at their sanity. The cold wrapped around them, dragging them deeper into a chasm of despair. Caleb's heart hammered in his chest, each beat echoing the urgency of their situation. He glanced at Alyssa, her face pale, eyes wide with terror. We can't just stand here. Alyssa shouted, her voice cracking as she pulled him toward the uncertain flicker of light ahead. But they immediately stumbled as the surface beneath them shifted, resembling a watery abyss, nothing but a facade. Stick together! Caleb yelled, each word strained with desperation as the shadows writhed closer. He clutched the locket, its warmth providing a brief flicker of hope amidst the darkness. It has to mean something. Caleb, what if it doesn't? Alyssa's voice wavered, and he could sense the fear that clawed at her resolve. Before he could reassure her, the shadowy figures materialized more clearly, their faces morphing between what felt like familiar and grotesque old friends twisted by fear, their eyes pleading or accusing. Caleb stumbled, feeling the locket pulse faster, as if alive, responding to the chaotic energy swirling around them. Help us, we're lost, a voice rang out, softer now, wrapped in sorrow. Caleb winced as he recognized the sound. It wasn't the first time he had heard it. Jaden! He called out, voice filled with hopes and fears intermingled. But no solid answer came. Instead, shadows darted closer, whispering threats like gusts of wind. You will join us or lose everything. A wave of dread flooded over Caleb. Were they merely phantoms taunting him, or were they remnants of lost souls, echoes of the past that he had failed to protect? Look, there. Alyssa pointed, and for the briefest moment, the shadows parted, revealing a hazy outline of a doorway shimmering at the periphery of their vision. Do you think we can make it? Caleb's voice was low, drenched in uncertainty. It's the only option, she replied, her face set with defiance even as her trembling hands betrayed her fear. Together, they sprinted toward the door, but with every step, the ground pulled at their feet with viscous threads of darkness. Caleb felt his resolve waning, the shadows gnawing at his determination. Were they too late? Caleb! Alyssa cried out, suddenly faltering, eyes locked onto the locket. What does it mean? You have to know. I don't know. He yelled back, panic rising, spiraling through him like a storm. Maybe it's tied to Jaden or even Jamie. I can feel something, but in that split second of doubt, the shadows surged forward, darkness crashing down like a wave over them. Caleb was overwhelmed, raw fear clawing at his throat. Panic and urgency intertwined, and then instinct kicked in. He gripped the locket with all his might, raising it between him and the encroaching darkness. Stay back. To his shock, the locket surged with light, vibrant and pure, shooting from its center, slicing through the shadows like sunlight through a storm. The phantoms hesitated, recoiling as if burned. Caleb felt a surge of hope. There's a way through. He shouted at Alyssa, the light amplifying as they pressed onward. Despite the terror in her eyes, Alyssa nodded, determination rekindling in her gaze. They charged toward the doorway, the light pushing back the darkness inch by inch, but the shadowy figures shrieked, their ominous wails mingling with the howl of wind. Caleb! We need to focus on the truth. Alyssa shouted over the noise, forcing her way through the turbulent chaos, reaching for the shimmering entrance. What truth? He yelled back, desperation edging his voice. They were close now, but the shadows clawed at their heels, desperate to drag them back. Whatever it may be, we have to believe it's worth fighting for. Caleb felt the warmth emanating from the locket solidify into resolve. They had been chasing shadows long enough. They had to discover the truth of their doubts. Could they confront the darkness inside themselves and claim their fears? The doorway loomed large ahead, illuminated by the locket's glow. But as they lunged forward, a deafening roar erupted, causing Caleb's heart to sink. Time's up, a chilling voice seeped from the depths of the shadows, echoing their worst fears. They were in the heart of the storm, the line between freedom and despair razor thin. Would they step through the doorway and confront the haunted truths waiting on the other side, or would they be swallowed whole by the shadows they tried to escape? In a breathless moment before the collision, he realized his greatest fear might not just be in facing the darkness, but uncovering what light remained waiting for them. What awaited them beyond the silence? Caleb felt the weight of the shadows bearing down on him, their icy tendrils creeping closer, wrapping around his ankles like chains. The split second stretched out, every heartbeat drumming in terror as time slowed. He could see at the doorway shimmering like a mirage, but just beyond reach. Go! He shouted, propelling his legs into motion. Each stride felt like he was running through molasses, the ground beneath him relentless, but the locket's glow pushed him forward. Caleb, wait! Alyssa's voice cracked, her panic tangible. He glanced back, heart clenching at the sight of her struggling against the darkness that seemed to reach out, desperate to pull her down. The shadows roared, their voices now a cacophony of agony. You have no choice. You can't escape. He could almost feel the weight of their despair pressing onto him. But a deep breath surged through him. We're not going to be their prisoners. He yelled, forcing the words past the lump in his throat. With one final push, they surged forward, the light from the locket brightening their path. Suddenly, Alyssa tripped, caught by an unseen force, her scream piercing the buzzing air around them. Without thinking, Caleb lunged back, gripping her wrist just as the shadows swirled around her. "Hold on!" he screamed, pulling with all his might against the darkness that clawed at her. Her fingers slipped, but Caleb tightened his grip, refusing to let go. The shadows screamed, voices rising to a fever pitch that shook the ground beneath them. "She belongs to us. You cannot take her. Let her go." His voice was raw, filled with desperate determination. Light from the locket flared, illuminating the swirling chaos around them. "Caleb!" Alyssa gasped, her eyes wide with both fear and trust. "I won't lose you. Not again!" he shouted, dragging her back inch by inch, their connection like a lifeline. With one surge of energy, the locket pulsed brighter than ever before, a beacon piercing through the relentless dark. The shadows roared in defiance, but they couldn't suppress the light. They shrieked and writhed, losing their grip as Caleb yanked Alyssa to safety, crashing through the threshold. They stumbled, tumbling onto solid ground as the doorway sealed shut behind them with a resounding thud. Silence enveloped them. Their surroundings were starkly different. An abandoned hallway stretched dimly ahead, lined with cracked walls and flickering lights that cast strange shadows. It felt eerily familiar yet entirely surreal. "What just happened?" Alyssa whispered, her voice trembling as she picked herself up off the floor. Caleb could see the fear wash over her, but there was something else too: curiosity. "I don't know, but I think we made it through," he replied, glancing back at the sealed doorway that now pulsed faintly. As they gathered their bearings, the locket dangled from Caleb's grasp, somehow humming a gentle melody that echoed in the silence. "But at what cost?" he murmured. They walked cautiously down the hallway, the air thick with a sensation that was both oppressive and exhilarating. What lay ahead was a mystery, each echo of their footsteps amplifying a sense of urgency. "What if there's something worse waiting for us?" Alyssa's question hung palpably, sharpening Caleb's senses. "Or what if we don't belong here?" "It's about finding our truth," he said firmly, even as doubt crept into his mind. "Whatever it is, we can face it together." Yet, just as they moved forward, a chilling gust swept through the hallway, snuffing out the flickering lights. Darkness embraced them again, swallowing the glow of the locket as shadows rose from the floor like boiling steam, reshaping the very space around them. "Caleb! Something's wrong." Alyssa's voice was a chorus of fear. Then, a figure stepped from the shadows, cloaked in darkness, eyes like burning coals staring directly at them. "You think you have escaped, but the hunt has only just begun," it whispered, its voice slithering through the darkness. Caleb's heart dropped. Whatever lay ahead was not just a truth he had to face, it was a reckoning. What sinister fate awaited them in this forsaken place? Were they truly free, or had they unwittingly entered something far worse? The figure before them glided closer, shadows swirling around it like a living shroud. Caleb felt every muscle tense, fear spiking in his chest. Who are you?" he forced out, his voice trembling despite his attempt to sound brave. The figure laughed, a low, eerie sound that echoed unnervingly off the cracked walls. "Names are meaningless here. You've entered my domain, and I thrive on the fears of lost souls." It stepped forward, illuminating its features, which were a grotesque mockery of humanity, twisted and curved in ways that made Caleb's stomach churn. "Alyssa!" he shouted, instinctively pushing her behind him. The thought of losing her again ignited a fire within him, but he fought to suppress the rising panic. "What do you want?" "Your minds hold the key to your fears, and I intend to unlock every door," the creature hissed, eyes glimmering with malicious glee. "For every fear you face, a memory will fade. I can offer you the peace you seek, but at a price." Alyssa blinked rapidly, clearly struggling to comprehend the threat. "You're lying. There's always a cost with creatures like you." "Ah, the girl is clever," the figure acknowledged, tilting its head in a sinister way. "Yet, it seems you underestimate the power of relinquishing control. Fear can bind you, or it can unleash you. The air grew colder, and Caleb felt a sudden heaviness in his heart. Memories of past failures and betrayals flooded his mind, battling against the relentless shadows wrapping tighter around them. He could hear whispered echoes, creeping in like vines looking to settle deep in his psyche. "No!" he screamed, clenching his fists as he fought against the dark thoughts trying to take root. "We'll face our fears together. You can't break us." The creature paused, taken aback by Caleb's defiance. It surged forward, shadows writhing violently at its command. "Then let the hunt commence," it roared, extending a twisted hand. Instantly, the world around them shifted. The hallway contorted like a funhouse mirror, images blurring together into multiple doorways that stretched infinitely in either direction. Each door glimmered briefly with tantalizing promises or hidden nightmares, pulling at Caleb and Alyssa's very souls. "Pick a door," the figure commanded, the tone drenched in mockery. "Choose wisely, or lose yourselves entirely." Panic crept in like the darkness. "What should we do?" Alyssa whispered, gripping Caleb's arm. The fear in her voice was palpable, mixing with the uncertainty of their reality. "Stay close to me. Don't let it distract you," he replied, though the knot in his stomach tightened. Each door seemed to whisper secrets, secrets Caleb had never wanted to confront. The burdens of his past loomed over him, threatening to pull him apart. Just as he was about to make a choice, the shadows pulsated again, and a ghostly echo startled him. "Face your fears or be consumed by the darkness." His heart raced. With every moment they hesitated, the shadows around them drew closer, intensifying the weight of dread. Caleb felt the locket grow warm against his chest, as if urging him to act. "Let us choose the door together," he said, squeezing Alyssa's hand tightly, determination flooding his veins. "We can't let it win. We have to find out what's behind them." Alyssa nodded, her resolve returning, but the figure let out a wretched laugh, sending chills racing down Caleb's spine. "You think you're ready? Very well, let the game begin." They stared at the swirling doors. Each one promised a different fate, weaving shadows and memories into a tapestry of potentially horrific truths. Caleb took a deep breath. He needed to act fast. Which door would lead them to salvation and which would seal their doom? The choice hung heavy in the air, a critical moment that could change everything. Time was slipping away, and the darkness craved its victory as they inched toward the nearest door. A blinding flash of light erupted, illuminating a glimpse of each overwhelming fate that awaited them beyond the threshold. What awaited them in the shadows of those doors? Would they find salvation, or would fear devour them whole? Caleb and Alyssa stood before the swirling doors, hearts racing, breaths shallow. They were at the edge of decision, the weight of countless memories pressing down on them like a thundercloud. "We have to act," Caleb urged, scanning the ominous shadows that writhed beneath his feet. Alyssa's grip tightened around his arm. "Which one?" she whispered, voice trembling. "What if we pick the wrong door?" "It doesn't matter." Caleb shot back, urgency spilling from him. "We can't let fear win. We've come too far." Behind them, the dark figure loomed closer. "Time is running out, sweet souls," it taunted, a twisted smile curling its lips. "Soon, this choice will be meaningless." "Let us go for the one on the left," Alyssa decided, her voice firm despite the chaos swirling around them. They turned towards the door, its surface flickering with dizzying images of joyous memories, laughter, familiar faces. "Together?" Caleb asked, readying himself for what lay beyond. "Together," she affirmed, and they pushed through the door. The world shifted, like stepping through liquid glass. They found themselves in a sunlit meadow, a stark contrast to the oppressive darkness they'd just fled. Wildflowers swayed in the gentle breeze, colors dancing like children playing in the sunlight. "It's beautiful," Alyssa breathed, taking a cautious step forward. But as Caleb took in the scenery, nostalgia washed over him, pulling him back to days of carefree laughter spent with friends. Yet, lurking beneath the surface, an insistent dread clawed at him. "Something feels off," he murmured, scanning the horizon. Then, whispers grew louder, filling the air. "You can have it all," a hurt voice softened with temptation. "All you've lost. All you yearn for." Caleb's chest tightened, realizing the meadow was a mirage, a cruel trick of the dark figure. "No. It's not real," he shouted, shaking off the hallucination. Suddenly, the vibrancy drained from the colors, and shadows surged from the edges, distorting the landscape into grotesque forms. "You thought this would save you?" the sinister voice echoed, twisting through the fields. "What you crave will be your undoing. We need to leave," Alyssa shouted, panic blaring in her eyes. "This isn't real." As they turned to retrace their steps, a torrent of shadows enveloped them, malevolent laughter echoing in their ears. They sprinted back towards the door, urgency fueling their escape. "Caleb! The shadows are coming!" Just as they burst back through the door, they collided against the cold, hard ground of the abandoned hallway. The figure, now furious, roared in fury. "You cannot run from your truths," it bellowed, sending a wave of shadows crashing toward them. "Pick another door," Caleb urged, eyes wide with fear. "Let us try the right one," Alyssa cried, and they darted toward it, the shadows snapping at their heels, whispering dark promises of despair. Through the door, the world spun once more. They found themselves in a dusty, dimly lit attic filled with echoes of laughter and whispers. At the center stood a child, young Jamie, her eyes bright and innocent. "Help me," she whimpered, reaching out. Caleb's heart shattered at the sight. "Jamie!" he shouted, running towards her. "Wait!" Alyssa cried, grasping his arm. "Caleb, it might be a trick." "A trick or not, she needs us," Caleb insisted, stepping forward, desperate to bridge the gap between them. But as he approached, the attic warped, shadows leaping around the child as her form twisted and darkened. "Help me!" the haunting cry echoed, now a sinister echo of false innocence. "No! Jamie, we're here to save you," Caleb cried, his heart heavy with the weight of his failures. In an instant, the figure morphed and towered above them, cloaked in shadows. "The truth will consume you," it roared, reaching toward him with skeletal hands, threatening to snatch away their last vestige of hope. "Caleb!" Alyssa shouted, stepping forward, flinging her arms out to protect him. "We can't give in." Then, the locket in Caleb's hand pulsed violently, resonating with the very essence of truth. "Face it. The truth won't hurt you." With a surge of courage, they interlocked their hands, standing defiantly against the malevolent figure. Shadows lashed out at them, but they refused to let go. "Together!" they cried, their voices uniting. Just like that, the locket exploded with a brilliant light, piercing the shadows that sought to envelop them. It split the darkness, allowing rays of truth to shine through. Memories flooded back, not just of Jamie, but of every friend lost to the darkness. Every mistake, every heartbreak, ultimately led to a newfound strength. In that moment of clarity, Caleb and Alyssa saw the darkness for what it truly was, a manifestation of their own fears, refusing to let go of the past. "We're stronger than this," Caleb shouted, voice resonating through the chaos. With renewed vigor, they pushed through the shadows, hands held tightly, hearts aligned. The light burst forth, engulfing the figure and shattering its grasp on them. Then, silence fell. The darkness dissolved, revealing them standing back in the graveyard, the night air fresh and full of promise. Their breath came easy, the sense of dread dissipated. But what now? "Jamie!" Caleb cried, scanning the graveyard for any sign. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the trees, bathed in silvery moonlight, her spirit glowing with light, no longer a shadow to be feared. "You found me," she whispered, joy ringing in her voice. Tears welled in Caleb's eyes as he stepped closer. "We're so sorry," but Jamie smiled softly. "You freed yourselves. You faced your fears, and that liberated me. Thank you." A warmth spread through Caleb, a connection rekindled. The darkness around began to fade as Jamie's spirit shimmered brightly. "Live," she urged, "and remember truth can triumph." As her figure began to dissolve, Caleb felt his heart swell with hope. They had faced the abyss together and emerged stronger, having raised their shields against the shadows. Alyssa grasped his hand, a silent affirmation of their bond. "We're free, aren't we?" she asked softly, looking into his eyes. "Yeah," Caleb nodded, a smile breaking through his tears. "Together, we can face anything." The sun began to rise, casting golden rays over the horizon, illuminating their paths forward. The night and its horrors melted away, leaving behind only the promise of a new dawn full of hope and healing. As they turned to leave the graveyard, Caleb squeezed Alyssa's hand tighter. They would face life, truths, and fears head-on together, and standing amidst the light, they embraced their newfound resolve, knowing from then on, they would never walk alone. You need to subscribe now to our channel so you don't miss out on the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and don't wait even one more second to share. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Remember, only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Let's keep this amazing community growing. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion.